Hi, welcome to Talking Auctions. I'm Roger Devine, founding partner of SchoolAuction.net, and I have with me today Brian Bice from Maximized Philanthropy Auctions. He's an auctioneer based in Lake Oswego, Oregon. Good friend of mine and someone that I have hired to call bids at some of my events. Wanted to bring him online here to talk about a handful of things. We're going to cover live auction procurement and a little bit about mobile technology and where it belongs in your fundraising auction. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian here. Brian, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your business.
Good morning, Roger. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
It's good to see you, and hello, everyone. Maximized Philanthropy Auctions is a business that's dedicated to fundraising. Benefit auctions are our only business. Our clients are all nonprofits. We work for large charity organizations all the way down to very small school, church, club groups, that kind of thing. And it's great fun and tremendously rewarding, as I'm sure you know.
Thanks. So let's jump right into this. You call the bids, you are the auctioneer, you conduct the live auction at the events that you are working at. You're up there at the front of the room. Often I'm in the back of the room, back near the desk and the computers. I get to see you work occasionally. You have a lot of fun when you're working.
I do.
Let's talk about...
Matter of fact, before we go any further, I should tell you that it's kind of a cornerstone of the business model. What I seek to do is to boost the fun quotient in the room. And what we found, this used to just be a kind of a theory, a supposition on my part, but I've actually now proved it to myself and to others. People spend more when they're having fun, and so when you're putting together a benefit auction, you tend to think in terms of the nuts and bolts of it, but keep in the back of your mind the idea that if we can help the audience, the guests, the people that are there in the crowd to have a good time, they'll not only spend more right now, but they'll be much more inclined to come back next year, buy tickets, and bring their friends. So I think having fun isn't just something that happens by chance, it's something you ought to plan on.
Well put. Couldn't agree more with you. Let's explore the fun a little bit more, how you have fun, and specifically in the context of items. What are the kinds of items that make it much more fun for you to conduct the live auction? Ones that are your favorite types to sell?
Well, generally speaking, what I've learned is, and I think most experienced auction professionals would agree, when you go about the business of procurement, particularly, I guess we're talking mainly about the live auction right now, but when you go about the business of procurement, you will find that experiences always sell, or almost always sell, for more than things, objects. The best experiences in terms of return on investment, in terms of the dollar amount you can get for them, are experiences that you just can't buy anywhere. They are not available. And actually the same is true for objects, if you can find some that are that obscure, but that people would like to have. Let me give you some examples.
Let me stop you there for a second here, Brian, because an object or an experience that you can't buy somewhere else is going to be a challenge to procure, right?
Well, yes and no. I think that the best tool that an auction procurement chairman can use in putting together a plan for acquiring the kinds of experiences and things that the audience is going to want to buy, I think the best thing that a procurement chair can do is to figure out and to help promote networking. I think that the kinds of experiences that we're talking about here, that as I say are either hard to get or almost impossible to get, can always be acquired, but you have to know the right person to acquire them. So let's just take a grade school, for example. Now, they have modest means. They're tremendously passionate about what they do. They clearly want to have fun. And these are usually made up of parents. So, and you can generally get a reasonably good group of volunteers together through the parent-teacher organization or whatever you have in your school. So let's say you've got 20 or 25 volunteers or even more who are going to go out and help you with procurement. Now, many times the typical fallback position is just to send them out into the community and have them stop by the local restaurant, the local frame shop, the store, whatever, and have them donate something. The problem with that is every other school in town and nonprofit in town is doing the same thing, and those merchants are kind of burned out on it, to tell you the truth. On the other hand, if you sit down and talk with those volunteers about people that they might know who may be able to help them to acquire something that ordinary folks just don't have the opportunity to acquire every day, you might find you come up with some stuff that is so exciting and so fun and so desirable that it sells for big money. Now, I can give you an example.
Yeah.
Well, I'm based in the Portland, Oregon area. It turns out, as it is true in many cities in America, there are a couple of major national TV shows, network TV shows, that are being shot here in Portland on an ongoing basis. One of them, Portlandia, obviously, is done in Portland. There's another show called Grimm that's done here in Portland.
I love Grimm.
Now, I don't, well, you probably do, but, and so you would be the perfect prospect for what I'm about to describe. I don't know anybody who works on the crew or the cast with Portlandia or Grimm, but many of them live here in the community. If I had 30 volunteers at my grade school here in Lake Oswego, Oregon, and I said to them, think about that. Do you know someone who knows somebody who might have a connection with the cast or the crew of one of these TV shows? If you do, and you could reach out to them, see if you can get us a pass to get on the set to watch them shoot an episode of this TV show. And ideally, if you can do that, see if you can arrange for that person while they're visiting the set to stand in the crowd in the background and be just part of the crowd scene. Maybe their image might appear on TV that week. Well, now that's something you can't buy. It's something, you don't get it off the shelf, but it is something that would be tremendously exciting, most particularly to anybody who's a fan of those TV shows. So what we do when we talk with auction groups about procuring items that are out of the ordinary, out of the box thinking, but highly desirable, is we try to expand their perception of how they'll go about it. If you do it through networking, you can frequently find things you didn't even think about. And you don't restrict that networking, by the way, to just your neighborhood. If you have friends and family who live in some faraway city, frequently that they have a connection to get their hands on a highly desirable experience or in that city. You know people in Washington, D.C. or New York or Los Angeles, for instance. A cousin, a friend, a relative, whatever it is, and you speak with them and you find out, oh yes, I work on turns out they work on the fundraiser auction for their kids' schools, and in their town, for instance, Washington, D.C., a private tour of the Capitol building is, kind of been there, done that. Everybody in Washington, D.C., whoever wanted to do it has done it. Well, people who live in Portland, Oregon haven't done it, and that sounds pretty cool to those people. You can either arrange through your friends and relatives in this faraway destination to acquire that and get it donated to your school, or maybe even do a swap with them. I mean, here in Oregon, for instance, a weekend home at the beach, it's in every auction I ever do. And it's fine, that's a desirable item to have, but maybe you could trade that weekend at the beach at Newport Beach in Oregon for a weekend in Washington, D.C. with a tour of the Smithsonian and the White House. Now, all of a sudden, both parties on either coast have a highly desirable experience that they can sell at their auction for much more money than they could if it had just been a local event. Does all that make sense?
Of course it does. And I have seen you sell things, like the time on TV here. I'm also thinking about the Play the Weatherman gig that you sold a couple of weeks ago that I saw. You seem to have a lot of fun doing that. Are those personally more fun to sell when you're up on stage?
They're a blast, and sometimes you just trip over an opportunity that comes along. I want to give you an example. I said earlier that experiences generally sell for more than things, but sometimes things that are very difficult to acquire, next to impossible to acquire, if you can get your hands on them, they're pretty cool too. A grade school here in town hired me for an auction a few months ago. This was just before the Super Bowl. And it turned out that one of the parents, a grade schooler, had a relative who was a part of the coaching staff at the Seattle Seahawks football team. He acquired an autographed Seahawks helmet for us.
This would be the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks?
Yes, and the amazing coincidence was I sold it on the night before the Super Bowl that the Seahawks were going to play in and subsequently won. I think we got $3,000 for that helmet. I don't know if you've ever seen a professional football helmet. They're enormous, and they're very impressive looking. And to get one that was autographed is unheard of. You can't buy those things off the shelf. So, again, it was a networking opportunity. Somebody knew somebody or had a relative or whatever, and they expanded their perspective to begin to include things that you wouldn't normally think about. And I think and to get back to your question, that was the most fun part, because everybody knew we had only one of those. This was not going to be one of those things where, oh yes, we've got another one in our pocket. And the audience went crazy over it. Momentum is critically important, I feel, in the success of a live auction. You want to get the crowd excited and up and pumped and cheering for the bidders when you've got 2 or 3 that are going after an item. If you have some items like this that the crowd gets that excited about, you'll find that momentum will happen and will continue, and it will affect the pricing of other objects and experiences that you're going to sell later on in that same live auction.
Okay, so we've covered things that are a little rare and hard to get, that may be outside of your community, things that your community is not necessarily going to trip over every day. What about the things that come up from the community themselves?
Well, I think that they can be exciting in their own right, but I would caution that you need to look at each individual auction item that you have in a live auction judiciously. You want to be certain that if you're going to sell, and we recommend, by the way, that you try to sell no more than 15 live auction items in the hour that you have the audience's attention. And an hour is just about as long as you're going to get their attention. If you have some items that you are tempted to put into the live auction, look at that critically to be sure that they're worthy. Frequently, if you are going out into the community, for instance, you have a parent at your grade school, to use that example again, who has a vacation home at the beach or up in the mountains, a ski home or something like that. And you can get that, that's terrific. By itself, that's nice. But if you can then go out and specifically acquire items that would go with that, build that package to make it much more than just, here's the use of this home for a weekend. If you're in the mountains, here's also a ski pass from the local resort or resorts, dinner at one of the best restaurants in that area, other items that might go with that may be able to be packaged together to make the whole thing much more exciting for the crowd. It helps the people in the audience to envision how terrific this weekend is going to be if you build that package for them. Okay.
So let's flip the question around. Occasionally, I'm sure it is that an auction team will bring you some ideas for things that they want to put in the live auction, and you start dying a little bit inside. You start cringing, thinking, oh no, please, let's not do this. What are some of the things that you would like to, as long as people are not bringing you their heartfelt items at this very moment and you can't hurt anybody's feelings, give us some idea of the kinds of categories of things you'd really rather not sell.
Well, they really fall under the heading of well-intentioned. I think probably the most egregious example of what you're talking about are very specific professional services. They're relatively easy to donate if your business is a service business. Let's say you're an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor. You don't sell product, you sell your services. And although you sell your services for, pretty good money, the fact is it doesn't cost you much if you are the lawyer or the accountant or the financial planner to say, I'll donate 5 hours of my time to help you with what it is that I do. As I say, let's make this much more visible. If it were, for instance, a financial planner, and he's going to put together a trust agreement for you and your family, that seems at first blush to the financial planner like that might be a really terrific auction item. The problem with that is auctions, benefit auctions, are where people go to make, for the most part, impulse purchases, emotional purchases.
Sure.
And if you think about these donations of professional services, most reasonable people would want to do some due diligence before they hired this professional to do whatever the service is. I use the outrageous example, well, if we're going to take this financial planner's package for a trust document or whatever, I've got a great donation from a surgeon who's donated an appendectomy. Now it's worth $10,000. But the only problem with that is we have to, first of all, have not one but two people in the room with appendicitis, and both of them, because you need to have two bidders going against one another to run the price up, both of them are so cavalier with regard to their health care that they don't really even care who this guy is with a knife in his hand. Now, that's not a reasonable thing to expect. And you similarly would not expect someone to bare their soul financially to a financial planner and share everything about their net worth and their planning and their family and all of those things just because they happen to have a few drinks and be at a benefit auction and they paid $500 or $1,000 for it. People think about these things at these auctions, and when they hear them, they don't bid on them. And so if you accepted that auction donation because you were trying to be a nice guy, because this professional offered it and you know that he charges big money for his services, so you accepted the auction item and you put it in the auction, and we'll say this professional happens to attend and be sitting in the audience. You now have the embarrassment of his package, which he knows is worth $7,000 or $8,000, selling for $300, if that. So think these things through before you accept the auction item in the first place. Be judicious about what you take and what you accept, what you will put into that final package for the auctioneer to sell.
I will only respond to that with my own example story of the surgery idea that actually went the other direction, was wildly popular many years in a row. One particular elementary school we work with had a doctor whose primary business is evidently providing vasectomies, and that was a very, very popular item in the auction year over year.
I can see how it might be, but you had a rollicking good crowd and they were having fun, or I don't even see that going for big money.
I have seen two women decide to start bidding on the item against each other, that they were going to procure this. I have rarely seen the men themselves step up to bid on the vasectomy.
Neat idea. Okay, go for the procurement of a vasectomy and see how it works at your school.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit here. There's another major topic that I'd like to cover a little bit today. It certainly is one of the bigger trends in our industry that there are vendors out there that want to engage auction teams and discuss mobile technology with them. Often the pitch is for mobile bidding, to replace silent auction bid sheets. I believe the pitch normally goes that you know, gosh, if you have to stand around a bid sheet and try to see over somebody's shoulder, that's awfully inconvenient. You might not put in another bid, but if it just pops up on your phone, you're going to bid far more often, and the group is going to make more money in total amounts raised. To say that I'm a skeptic about mobile bidding on that scale would be a bit of an understatement. Over at our blog on schoolauction.net, I've got an article there that entitled "Why I Think Mobile Bidding is a Bad Idea." But subsequently, after having written that blog post, we're going to be we've announced we're going to start adding in mobile technology into schoolauction.net, our software for helping schools and other volunteer-driven nonprofits plan, manage, and run their fundraising events. And we're going to include some mobile bidding in this. So we've got a handful of ideas on where mobile technology best fits, and if you're going to use it for bidding, what it is best for. But I wanted to toss out to you, just to start the conversation, if you had to advise a group on whether or not to bring mobile bidding into their event, meaning that the guests would use a smartphone or an iPad to enter their bids in, what kind of advice would you give them as to what not to do?
I think I'd be very, very cautious about going that route. I'm as impressed as anyone with the quality of the technology and the velocity with which it continues to increasingly take over businesses that have been around for years. I'm always cautious about anything that will slow down the momentum that happens when there is spirited bidding in a live auction. So that's part one. I would wonder what effect this would have on the attitude in the room. You want to capture the audience's attention. You want to keep everybody focused on what you're doing. And I would be kind of concerned about the fact that some of the bidders are not bidding the way some of the other bidders are. And you know you're never going to have 100% of the people in the room doing exactly the same thing. I think it might create more confusion than it's worth, and this could be one of those areas of technology where eventually these issues that I'm raising and that others have raised is going to be solved, and the problem is gone, and now everybody is doing this kind of bidding. But I don't think we're there right now. And the people that I work with are tremendously passionate about their cause. They don't want to take any chances regarding the outcome, the financial outcome of what they're trying to do. And so I have seen, in fact, reluctance on the part of auction chairs that I've worked with for trying anything as new and revolutionary as that, because running a test on the night when they're going to make the only big money they're going to get all year for their cause just isn't in the cards.
So let me parse out a little bit of what you're saying there. It sounds like your primary objection is to using mobile technology during the live auction portion of the evening. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you know, we've kicked this around a little bit, you and I. The point that you bring up, that not everybody in the room is going to be comfortable with this, that really means that there is a potential that one of your best bidders, one of your big wallets in the room, might be in the admittedly perhaps a very small subset of people who didn't bring their phone with them, or isn't comfortable doing it, or feels like it is it's something that they don't feel, perhaps they don't feel competent doing. And if those two overlap, if it so happens that's one of your big wallets, that's a moment where you take a real hit in the money that's raised there. What about the paddle raise? What do you think about conducting a paddle raise and having guests type in whatever amount they want to donate into their phone and go from there?
It's a good question, and I think it begs another question, or at the very least another consideration. When I was just starting out in the business, a very, very wise man told me that he perceived benefit auctions as being conspicuous philanthropy. And by that he meant that there are people, many people I have found, who come to a benefit auction because they care about that cause. They really do. They're very sincere and they're very passionate about the cause. But one of their motivations for being there is because they want to be seen being there, and they want to be seen being there, spending money, donating to this cause. Their motivations don't matter. It doesn't matter whether they're doing this for their own self-aggrandizement or they feel like this would help their business if everybody in the room knew that the guy who owned Schmidlap Groceries was here spending big money at the auction. That doesn't matter. The fact is, they came there that night because they wanted to not only donate big money, but they also wanted people to see them donating big money. The paddle raise is a perfect example. You start a paddle raise at the highest possible dollar amount where you think you're going to be able to have somebody who raises a paddle out there, and then you work down. And typically, when you start at that high dollar amount, $5,000, $10,000, whatever that number is, only a couple of paddles go up, if any at all. And everyone in the room notices who's raising those paddles at the big amount. And I will encourage the crowd to give those very generous people a warm round of applause for being so generous with this cause, whatever the cause might happen to be. So I acknowledge the fact that they should be allowed to take a bow if they're going to be that generous. And I always assume they'd kind of like to take a bow, because you can also donate to a paddle raise anonymously. Happens all the time. You know, as we begin tonight, folks, I want you to know we have two $5,000 donations that have been put up by anonymous donors, and I don't even know if they're here tonight, but isn't that really terrific? So it can be done. If people don't do that...
If people want to simply, you know, donate an amount to the charity, they don't even need to come to the event. They can just...
That's for sure. Absolutely. So if people are there and they're raising a paddle, if people are there and they're bidding up an auction item, grade schools frequently sell a parking space. And they go for, oftentimes, for big money. And you've got 2 or 3 bidders going back and forth, and I've sold those things for $2,000-3,000 a piece. The people who are bidding on that are excited about being able to, and I do think they are doing it at least in part because they want the other people in the room to see how generous they are with this particular cause. If you're doing it in private on an iPad or a phone or whatever it is you've got in your hand, the opportunity to take a bow isn't quite the same. So again, I think that maybe the technology may come around to the point where this is no longer an issue, or it works so well that you don't even care about that issue. I don't know. It's just my point of view that we aren't there yet.
Okay. I definitely see that there is an intrusion by the technology in the moment there. You know, perhaps the technology vendors that are pushing this will display things up on a board and what have you, but is that really as immediate as seeing, you know, the other dentist on the other side of the room raising his paddle for $5,000, and, you know, you're a dentist and you're on this side of the room, and by gum, you can't let that guy out, you know, elbow you aside in this, so you put up your paddle there. The immediacy may not be as strong with the you know, with everybody with their face down into a screen tapping a number. Okay, so we'll keep the mobile technology out of the live auction, keep it out of the paddle raise. Do you have any thoughts about where it belongs in the silent auction?
It could be useful. I think, you know, whether they're doing it that night, I mean, I think a much more logical and likely use of technology with silent auctions is to open it up a week before the auction or a period of time before the auction, and to promote that to your donor group. If they're a school, it's parents. If they're the symphony, it's their benefactors. And let everybody know, you've got all those email addresses, let everybody know that if they would like to begin bidding right now on some of the silent auction items, they should go do that. You know, we frequently recommend, we always recommend to our clients when they're doing a silent auction and they're putting together the bid sheet that sits there on the table in the silent auction items, that they have a buy now number, a buy now amount, so that if someone walks up to that, and this is, you know, this butterfly collection, and I've always wanted a butterfly collection, and the bidding starts at $20, well, you don't have to put up with fighting with other bidders, competing with other bidders over whether or not you're going to get it. If you'll just agree to pay $100, the bidding stops right there, and you now own the butterfly collection. There's an incentive for people to go online and look at your silent auction items. They may very well not want to compete with other bidders for some of these things. And it's even, I mean, it happens to me. I look at silent auction items when I am working on an auction, and I frequently see things I'd kind of like to have myself. Sometimes they're so appealing, I don't even want to take a chance on anybody outbidding me, and I'll buy it right then. How much better it would be if I could have done that 5 days ago from my home computer when I saw the butterfly collection I've always had my heart set on, if I could buy it right then. So I think that kind of tool is extremely useful. At the present time, at least based on my own personal experience, I don't think it's been used as widely as it could be. And I know that there are software programs that do facilitate this and help the sponsoring entity to promote this to their donors and benefactors, everybody who bought a ticket last year or however you're going to do that. I think that's a terrific idea. And a lot of people are so into this, they would take advantage of that. It's a good way to go.
Well, and at this point, let me bring up that one particular software package has these features in it and is definitely worth exploring, and that's schoolauction.net, our software. And anybody watching this who wants to check out our software, see a demo, or play around with it yourself should come to our website, www.schoolauction.net, and check it out. And I'll take that as a transition here to talk a little bit more about what our plans for mobile technology are. I've said that we are going to be implementing mobile bidding. We're gonna follow the pack here. It seems to be something that a lot of auction teams want, but we're going to strongly encourage. We're going to take this a step further, that mobile bidding on items be a separate section of your event. One of the analogies I really like to use about a fundraising auction is that they are a department store that's only open for 6 hours a year, and the live auction, your specialty, is one department. It's a high visibility department that a guest could choose to participate in. The paddle raise is another. The silent auction is a third. Perhaps you've got a wine wall, a raffle, games. These are all separate compartments of your overall event that a guest can mix and match in. And we're going to be recommending very strongly that you make a certain subset of items, a small subset of items, you know, a dozen perhaps, maybe up to 20 that are available for mobile bidding, but that you choose those items carefully so that you can try to match them to the people in your group who you think are going to be most inclined to utilize mobile bidding. And then you limit the use of mobile bidding to those items, so that should somebody be uncomfortable with the process, should they have forgotten their phone at home, should they not consider themselves to be tech savvy enough, there are other places they can go, there are other things they can do during the event that will allow them to spend the money that they came to spend and contribute to the organization. The other point that you alluded to briefly that I wanted to circle back on was, again, this idea that it's not going to be equally adopted by everybody in your audience. And one of the things that this says to me is that it should be mobile technology should be best deployed in an optional way. The first thing that we are deploying, that we deployed this spring, that utilizes mobile technology is an advanced check-in, or a check-in that guests can do from their phone while they're perhaps driving to the auction itself, so that they can enter their credit card there and skip the line when they come in. Similarly, at the end of the evening, we're offering a mobile-optimized self-checkout, so guests don't have to get up and go stand in line. They can stay at their table and review their purchases and check themselves out. But in both cases, these are optional methods for a given guest to check in or check out. We're making sure that our customers are set up with multiple check-in methods, so that if somebody does not want to use their phone, they can come to the desk and check themselves in or check out, or they can pursue the traditional express checkout type of idea where swipe your card at the beginning of the evening and then just leave whenever you want to leave and allow the auctioneer to charge your card later on and email you a receipt. I think personally this is the way that mobile technology makes the most sense, and certainly from the experience that the feedback we've been getting from our customer base, it works like a charm, and it's pretty beautiful. Mobile bidding, as I say, we're rolling it out this fall here. We have some customers lined up that are going to be using it here in September and October. We'll let you know how that goes, and maybe I'll be changing my mind and endorsing it a little more enthusiastically in the future. But for right now, I'm with you, Brian. I don't know that you want to put all your eggs in one basket with regards to how you are going to have your guests bid and contribute to your event. Any follow-up thaughts on that?
No, I was going to say I think that the strongest use of the technology is in what you just suggested, check in and check out, and of the two, check out. I've been doing this for more than 20 years, and when I started, there wasn't any software to help auction groups with things like check-in and check-out. It was laborious, time-consuming, confusing, frequently got messed up because you're dealing with volunteers who are trying to do it. It's gotten a lot better, of course, over the years. But anything that we can do to facilitate getting those people out of the room, into their cars, and home when it's over, as painlessly as possible, is a great idea. It's a buzzkill more than anything else if you've got to stand in line for a long time and then try to figure out how you check out, get the objects, if they were objects you bought, or get the gift certificates or whatever they are and take them home. It just it puts a damper on your feeling about that evening, and the psychologists will tell you that when you recollect something from the past, the law is primacy or recency. You remember the first thing and the last thing that happened to you at that event. And since check-in and check-out are the first thing and the last thing that happened to you at those events, if you have a bad memory, a bad feeling about either of those elements, it can color your interest in wanting to participate again the following year. This goes back to what we said at the very beginning, fun quotient. Part of our job in these auctions is to help people have as much fun as possible, so they'll spend a lot and they'll come back next year, buy tickets, and bring their friends. If the check-in or check-out process, and more often than not it's the check-out process, is so painful that it negates all of the fun they had all night sitting there with their pals and drinking wine and bidding on auction items, if it negates that, then you've got a real problem. So when I first heard about mobile checkout, in fact, where you could do it on your phone, I mean, I thought the coolest part of that is you can give them a complete recap of everything they've spent, what they've bought, all of everything, so that they can check to make certain that you've done your job and you've got the numbers tallied properly. The other option, which you mentioned earlier, we leave the credit card number with them, we're on our way, and they email you with the receipt and all of that, that's fine. And you assume that whoever was keeping track of this, the stenographer in the room, did their job right. But if you did buy the butterfly collection and they didn't get that written down and you've now checked out, you're going to have to go back around and get that problem fixed in order to be sure you get your butterflies. The advantage, it seems to me, with your mobile checkout technology is I get an opportunity to check on your work, to see to it that you got everything right that I think I bought. And I think that's a tremendous advantage of this tool.
Well, fantastic, Brian. Thank you so much for participating with me today. I think we're going to wrap this here. The video will be available on YouTube for people to review again later on. Again, I'm Roger Devine from SchoolAuction.net, software company that helps volunteer-driven nonprofits plan, manage, and run fundraising auctions. My guest today has been Brian Bice of Maximized Philanthropy Auctions. Thank you again, Brian, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, Roger.
Bye.